Staffing can be a brutal hamster wheel. Have you ever been here? You work super hard to find someone, then you struggle to communicate your vision. By the time you finally get the person trained, they leave for a better opportunity. Today on Run a Profitable Gym, we're going to solve these problems with a staff ascension model that starts right at hiring with specific emphasis on growth and development. I'm Mike Warkentin. This is Run a Profitable Gym. Please hit subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. With me today, Joleen Bingham. She's a gym owner, entrepreneur, super mom. She's a leader of our Tinker program for upper level gym owners. She's got an amazing model that's going to help you retain staff longer by creating careers for them, and she's going to share it with you today. Joleen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for that amazing intro too.
I am always amazed at all the balls that you have in the air and none of them ever drop. So it's always fun to chat with you. And I know that you've got a detailed list to take listeners through, which is super important because I've struggled with this. I'm going to ask you this right off the top. Have you had staff struggles like the rest of us, or are you just like a staffing wizard right off the bat?
Oh man, I wish I was a staffing wizard right off the bat. Every mistake in the book, I have probably made it. And if you guys haven't made it yet, I can tell you about it because I've done it.
Okay, so that's good to know.
Yes. Yeah.
So is that what led you to develop this model? Like, did you just hit these mistakes over and over again and say, oh, wow, I need to figure this out? Or how did you come across this thing and set it up?
I was tired of fixing things, basically. So it came down to making mistakes over and over again and needing something to save me time and make sure that I had a better staff and could provide for them better.
Because it's such a brutal process, right? Like I said in the intro there, you get these people and you invest all this time and energy, and then you just can't give them a career. So they leave and you're just back to square one. And it's like you never get to put the right people in the right places at the right times. It's always just like round pegs, square holes, and everything's falling apart. That's how I felt at my gym. And I'm sure if you said you've made every mistake, you're probably in the same boat. Give me a quick summary here. Like, how has this model solved your problems? When you put this thing in place, what happened at your gym?
Okay. Well, let me go back and tell you some of the mistakes so that you can understand exactly why I had to fix it. Just like you said, the staff turnover, right? You know, staff turnover because we couldn't find a good or provide a good career for them. We couldn't show them that it could be more than part-time. It could be full-time, and not just full-time, but they could make a really good living doing it. But in addition to that, our staff weren't bought in, right? So it was one of those things where, have you ever felt like you're hitting your head against a wall because you want people to do something, you want them to see the vision, and they just aren't getting it. That was a big one for us. I got really tired of repeating myself and feeling like I was a broken record. And also, we had the staff leave to open their own gyms because they thought it would be easier, all of those things. So those were the mistakes. Those were the reasons. And those are what this has solved, right? So we can provide a career. We have had staff stay with us longer. So we were turning over staff every couple months, and that's hard. That's hard to train them. We've had staff who, since we implemented this, have been with us the entire time. Staff making upwards of 100,000, probably going to hit over 100,000 again this year.
Six
for
figures.
Some of my staff. Yes.
That's a career.
And it's a good career, a very good career. And they're more bought in right now. So they understand the vision. They know why they're doing it. They know why they're showing up for work, which translates to them staying longer too.
And you've had staff leave to open their own gyms, you said. That must be just the worst.
It's very frustrating because it's happened in two instances, and everybody who's gone through it has the same feelings. Usually it's done behind your back, right? And usually you have to then fire them and deal with all the fallout, right? Deal with all the fallout of that. So yes.
And it's the worst because what you've done is you've put all the stuff in place. This person then kind of leaves, takes the best of what you've done, but says the rest of it wasn't good enough and starts up fresh with some borrowed version, stolen version of what you've done. And it's usually a disaster over there too. But the whole thing is like, it's so stressful for you. And even if you're just losing people and they're not opening their own gyms, you're investing so much time. Like hiring is such a long process, right? Because you got to post the ads and interview and all this other stuff. Then you got to train and onboard. Then you got to do reviews. And then they leave after 6 months and you've just wasted all this time. So gym owners, if you are out there and you've gone through this, you are not alone. I have gone through this. Joleen has gone through this. Almost every business owner has gone through this, but you can fix it by putting some very concise models in place. And really laying out the path to a career, because careers don't just happen. You have to create them. And that's your job as the CEO and gym owner. You're not a trainer anymore. You are the CEO, and you're creating careers and helping staff members thrive so they build your business, allowing you to focus on the things that really drive your business. So Joleen, let's jump into it. I'm going to share some screens while we talk about it, but let's walk us through this model. And guys, you're getting a sneak peek into Two Brains curriculum for clients. You're not going to see all of it, but you are going to see some very interesting things that are going to get you started so that you can make careers at your gym. Joleen, walk us through and let's see how this works at ground level at your gym.
So as you're bringing that up, I'm going to say we always start with hiring. And as Mike just recently said, hiring is hard, right? For any of you guys who are gym owners who are in the process, hiring is time consuming. It's hard. It is stressful because you're not just finding somebody who is just going to take clients or coach classes. You're finding somebody who's going to represent your business and is the face of your business in the community. And that can go very well, or that can go very wrong, depending on how the hiring. So hiring is really developing the right team to run and grow your business at the end of the day. You're not just getting somebody who's place filler in the class. You want somebody who's a good fit. You want somebody who has the right qualifications, and you want somebody who is actually passionate about working with people. And a lot of times, if you're just hiring quickly, you're going to find somebody who just wants a job. Right? Well, that's not what you want. You don't want somebody who just wants a job. So we found that somebody who was consistent and somebody who is passionate is going to be there longer, right? So having a consistent process is really important here, because then you're not stuck scrambling every single time. And when I mean having a consistent hiring process, do you have the SOP in place for, hey, I need a nighttime coach. This is the process that I'm going to do every single time. This is where I'm going to look every single time. This is where I'm going to post. This is the email. This is the social media post. And so what that might look like is, do you send an email out? Do you look internally? What order do you do this in, right? And having that really set structure of it. So I'll give you my example hiring structure so that everybody can kind of look at this. Keep in mind, I'm a personal training studio. My 3 fitness businesses are all personal training or kind of semi-private personal training. So it's not a large group model. So it might be a little different. If and when I was in the past a large group model, I started internally. If you're a personal training studio, probably not the first place you want to look. Then I looked locally. I used my email list. I used current trainers, and I asked them, hey, do you have somebody or a friend who's training in another gym who's not making enough money, who doesn't like the environment they're in, who wants help growing their career? Then we posted on social media. Then we developed partnerships with local colleges. Now we have a partnership with a local university in their personal training and exercise science program that we work with them. And they are amazing kids. One now works full time for us. And the last place I go is paid job postings, right? So Indeed, LinkedIn, those are different parts. But if I didn't have that listed out and I didn't have that system and structure, can you imagine every time I needed somebody quickly or somebody left, where I'd be scrambling? So that's the first part of my staff ascension model, is making sure I've got that structure laid out.
Everything you laid out is going to save tons of time, because gym owners, you're going to lose staff from time to time. And if you have this list and know exactly, like Joleen laid out 5 things before paid ads, if you have that list and you just run through it every time, first of all, it's going to save you tons of time when you need it. Second of all, you're going to start building a network where that local college, I think Chris Cooper's written about this as well, that connection to a local college and say an ex-phys department, hey, who's your best student and does that person need a job, could result in the easiest hiring of all time. And it might be a great one. So make that list, write it out, and then keep building that network. Keep her going, Joleen. This is a great start already.
Okay. All right. So real quick though, I want to mention mistakes that often happen in this, because I think that's really important for people, is the mistakes. Hiring too fast. That's going to be your number one mistake in this process. And hiring too fast, because then you're not going to be able to evaluate if they're a good fit for the clientele in your gym. So when you saw that model that Mike just had shared the screen, in the hiring process, that recruitment is just part of it. You have an interview. There we go. Perfect. You have the interview part of it, and you also have the formal offer. That interview part is just as important in the hiring process. And that's where I said the mistake of hiring too fast comes into play. It's not just, hey, nice to meet you. Here's some questions. Let's get you started on the floor. It's, right, let's have a conversation. Let's see if this is even a good fit for you. Let's bring you in and have an in-person meeting with you. Then maybe it moves into some kind of shadowing, or if for me in the personal training, it is having them train some of our current clients under the direction. For you, if it's a group class, maybe it's having them, if they have experience already, train in your group classes to see that fit. So if you skip any of those steps, you really risk bringing someone in who is not a good fit. And so that's why that part of it also has to be part of your hiring process too.
Let me ask you this, and listeners, if you are on the podcast and want to take a look at this, head over to YouTube and you'll be able to see exactly what we're talking about. But you talked about not rushing and going through these steps. So do you hire in advance of need, or do you look? Because sometimes it's so tempting when you're just desperate, you just grab you and put them in the class. Do you kind of look, are you always looking for new staff?
Yes, always looking for new staff currently. Yep, I didn't used to do that. And then it was, oh no, we don't have anybody to take any new clients.
Are you breathing? Do you know what a squat is? You're in.
Right. Can you pick the weight up? Yeah. No, we're always hiring. We have gotten really good at networking and making connections and building relationships, and knowing that we might not have a position for you right now, but we have this relationship with you in the future.
And the cool part about that is that the model that we're talking about of creating careers, you might find a great person and then you can create the stuff that then allows them to build a career that helps your business grow. We're going to brush up on that in the concept of entrepreneurialism, probably in the development section, and growth, retention, and so forth. But that's an interesting one, because if you find a great person, you might want to hire them and figure out what they can do to help you grow your business. All right, keep it going, Joleen.
Yep. And I'm just going to say I've done that before.
Yeah,
I have some amazing staff because I've done that. Mm-hmm. All right. So once you have a great person in place, you are set that they are a fit for your gym. They are going to be perfect for your clients, group or PT. Then you've got to move into onboarding. And so this is an area that I was really terrible at. I was really, really bad at this, and I'm not afraid to admit it. Right. So I hired somebody and I was like, okay, here you go. Here's your class. Right. Like when I first bought a gym.
Go do it.
Yep. Oh, I forgot to give keys before too. So. Yes. Right. Like I said, I made all the mistakes. But in the onboarding process, we've actually created a checklist for the onboarding, right? These are the SOPs they need. This is the paperwork they need to have done. This is the key is actually on the checklist now because of that one time. These are the values of our business they need to be able to implement. This is the vision. This is how it's been clearly communicated to them. This is cancellation, like all of the different processes they need to know as part of onboarding. And that's just kind of from the administrative side. In the onboarding, whether you're group fitness or you're semi-private or you're one-on-one training, you should have an onboarding that has an internship structure of some kind. If you're hiring somebody with 20 years of experience, it may be shorter, right? You may not need a 3-month internship with them, but you still need to show them your vision of your business. You need to have expectations.
Checklist, right? And I love that you said that, because everything that you've laid out, again, you can repeat this every single time with that checklist. Yeah. So that's great.
Yeah. And in this process, you have to also set up their future growth and development. So things like their weekly meetings with you. Well, maybe they're not weekly later on down the road. Their career roadmap, which is basically the process of you showing them how they can grow and develop in your business, how they make more money, the trainings that they need. And then the last part of onboarding that I think gets missed sometimes is an actual clear transition out into, all right, we think you know not everything, but we think you are ready to move into a full-time employee or ready to move into less structured development with us.
Do you lay out the timelines for that, or is it different for everyone? And how do you let them know what those timelines are?
So it is different for everyone with us. I know some gyms who are very successful who have a very strict onboarding, but that's because they hire more of a specific type of person. So I might hire somebody who has a latest hire as a physical therapist with, 20 years of experience. Their onboarding is going to be very different than somebody just coming out of college with an exercise science degree. Right. So what is key for me in the onboarding is showing they have the skills, right? So a physical therapist is going to easily be able to show me they have the skills to train somebody, whereas somebody right out of college might need to shadow. They might need to train somebody's clients for a while. Then they might need to train clients with program development. Then they might need to, have their own clients and get evaluated more often. So it's going to be very different based on each person.
If I would pull two things out of what you just said, on the onboarding section, it would be to make a checklist of every single thing from here are your keys to here is, I'm sure you have a level of competence that allows you to get in front of a class or a person. That's the main ones, having that checklist. If you don't, you are doomed to repeat the same cycle over and over and over again, right? Like, have you done that where you're just like, before you had checklist, was it a disaster?
I developed them pretty quickly because it was, right? And so one of the things I think that if you've heard me talk or you know anything about me is that I'm a very big systems person, and mostly because I made mistakes in the past and had to create the systems so I didn't have to keep making them.
Is that checklist, how long is it? Is it a page or what does it look like?
It's a page if it's on one Google sheet. And it can just be a quick checklist often, or it might be something that we spend a month on with that person. But they get an evaluation at the end of it.
All right. So there we are. Now, development. Yep. How does this work? Because this is where things start to get weird. Because again, you and I did the same thing where we pushed the birds out of the nest and then said, like, I hope you fly. And some of them hit the ground.
Yes, a lot of them hit the ground for me, but maybe we nurtured them up off the ground at that point.
Yeah.
So development is really the first step that, okay, we've said you're onboarded. Now we're going to start to develop your skills, right? So maybe we think you can handle a certain type of client. Maybe we think you can handle a basic class. Well, now let's talk about a weightlifting class, or let's talk about a gymnastics class, or let's talk about clients who have a little bit more complexity, showing them that they can start to take on more higher value things, right? And that might also be, how do we move them into a leadership role? So maybe your head coach leaves and now you have a coach that you need to develop and move them into a leadership role. So it's really about that beginning process of nurturing the things they like, finding out what they like, and helping them get better at it.
So are you sitting down and just literally asking them, like, what do you like? What are you good at? What are you passionate about? Or how are you doing that?
Start with, because some of them don't know it yet, right? If they're just outside of college, they might still need to develop it. And maybe for them, it is exploring all the different types of training. Maybe for somebody who's been in it for 20 years, they know what they don't like anymore. And so we can help keep that away, and maybe they need to explore other areas. But it all begins with conversations. So
you're chatting with your coaches regularly, finding out who they are, what drives them, what they're good at, what they want to do, what they're capable of doing. What else happens in that development stage? Like, are you giving them like ongoing training? Are you saying like, hey, take this course, or is it this is just the early stages?
So it is the early stages, but we're beginning to develop their professional development plan.
Okay.
Right. So we're creating their pathway forward here. It might not be fully developed because they're still learning, but it is, okay, in a year, this is where we would like you to be. Right. Or these are your opportunities. This is what we provide. Here are some other options.
And here when some of the things that you're talking about, they're revenue generating things, right? So when you're starting to say things like, even at this early stage, I've heard you say, hey, specialty programs or different opportunities, that's places where coaches can see, hey, I can make more money, and the gym is going to benefit from that revenue as well. So you're already looking for that at this point, correct?
Yes. So this is really where they start to learn that entrepreneurialism. I actually said the word right today.
It's so hard. That's the one that crushes me every time. I know.
So this is where we start to develop that, because if we don't start talking about it now and showing it, they're never going to do it because it doesn't come naturally to most people.
Entrepreneurs are kind of a rare breed. You can kind of groom the right people, but they don't just naturally appear. And if they did, they're probably they opened up competing gyms 8 years ago, as opposed to just finding them. You find a college student with an ex-phys degree, not an entrepreneur, but can be coached to think like one under your mentorship. And that's the whole key. Again, as a CEO, you're a mentor. You can't just be like, build this program. Many of us in the gym industry, I'm guilty of this. We thought, okay, we have this idea. You could crush a weightlifting program. Dude, go do that. And it just comes back. They have one sign up and it was horrible and you lost money on it because you paid the coach in advance and all this other crap. I've done that. But on the other hand, if you say, hey, 10 of our clients in goal review sessions said they're competing in an upcoming 5K race. Let's put together a Couch to 5K plan. We're going to teach all these people how to prepare for the race. It's going to have high touch coaching. We're going to meet with them, training plan, nutritional strategies, pre-race strategies. And we're going to get 5 or 10 of their friends by asking them, who else are you running with? We're going to put that together. We're going to charge this much money. And you see where I'm going with this. If you lay that plan out and put all these entrepreneurial pieces in place that you as the CEO can see, you put that in place, give it to the person, that person can probably run with that plan and learn from it, as opposed to saying, go coach weightlifting, find client, right? It doesn't work like that. Take us further now, right?
Yeah, it doesn't at all. And just something that I have found really helpful with that is to train the staff is I do it the first time and they watch me do it.
Lay deep tracks. Chris has said that. Yes.
Yep. Then I do it together with them. And then the third one, they do on their own under guidance. So it really helps if you are truly set on developing these people for long term to do it that way. And that's three different rounds of specialty programs. So that's a pretty long time period of working with them. I think that's what people forget.
And it seems like a huge investment. But if you keep that person and that person is making $100,000 and is satisfied at your gym and loves it, you don't have to do this all the time, right? That's the client retention or the employee retention that we're getting into. This stuff all helps keep people long-term. Take us further along the path.
All right. Growth and retention. So this is where they become leaders. Really. So this is where you retain them. This is where you keep them long-term. And if you stop developing them, this is where you're going to lose them too. So this is where a lot of mistakes can get made because they get bored, right? They feel like they've hit a ceiling. They can't go any further. They don't feel appreciated. So you really have to, in this stage, dial in that professional development plan, but you also have to really recognize them as individuals. And I know I've mentioned this in different places before, but the 5 languages appreciation in the workplace have been key for me in keeping people, because I'm recognizing that this person likes to be recognized by a monetary reward. Okay, that's fine. That's a bonus. This person likes to be recognized by time. Well, then I need to work out with them or give them more weekly meetings. This person likes to be recognized by words of affirmation. I'm not sure that's exactly what it's called in the languages, but then I need to tell them they're doing a good job more often. And so in this stage, and that's why that retention part of it is there, it's not just about training them to be better leaders. It's also about making better people in that regards and I want to treat everybody as people, but showing them that appreciation.
I'm going to highlight one thing before you go further. Gym owners, this is right here in this section. This is where the $20 an hour or $25 an hour per class coach loses interest, because I've hit the ceiling of I make $25 per class. That's all I shall ever be. And there's only so many classes. And now I'm coaching 40 classes a week and I'm making this much money and I can never see a path further. That's where clients or customers, that's where employees pull the ripcord and exit the fitness industry to apply to be firefighters and real estate agents because they can't see a future forward. So, Joleen, what kind of stuff do you put in here to create that so that they see that future?
Yeah, the career roadmaps, right? I think that we don't use them enough, right? We don't check in with our staff enough because we feel like they're trained, they're doing everything they need to do, and that we just go, all right, we're good. You know what you're doing. And they hit that point that, like you said, and I see you have the career roadmap.
I'm just showing off the section here. And again, if you're on a podcast, check over on YouTube. We have a whole section that has staff evaluations. We've got Coop talking about career roadmaps, talking about at least twice a year meeting with them. There are whole staff opportunities masterclass. The whole idea here is that you are showing people that this is not a $25 an hour class thing for the rest of their lives. There is a career that goes forward from this. And that's not something that's obvious in the fitness industry. And it's cost us a ton of great people who are now in other industries. So this stuff, again, this is inside the 2 Brain modules that are for clients only, but I'm giving you a sneak peek just so you can see how deep this stuff goes. There's tons of stuff in here. Back to the template. Let's go further.
Okay. So moving into exit, right? Our staff leave us for many reasons, right? They do. Whether they find another job, whether they stay home with kids because they've had kids, whether they move, doesn't matter what the reason is. Almost everybody will leave us at some point. But if we don't have an exit strategy, we aren't going to, first of all, we could end up with people who are opening another gym having access to our entire client list because we don't have a strategy to shut that down. That's the real bad piece of it. But we also aren't going to know how to communicate with our other staff, how to communicate with our clients when they're leaving. And so if you have personal training clients and you have a trainer leaving, how are you communicating to them? We also don't know how to get better. Right. So if we have a staff leaving because maybe we did miss the career roadmaps, maybe we didn't show them appreciation, we're not going to know that and know how to fix it for other people moving forward. So it can be simple as, well, how do we implement their last paycheck and how do we get that to them, to all the way up to an exit interview or really kind of dialing in depth why they're leaving.
There's a lot of mechanical stuff that happens when a staff member leaves. You got to get their keys back, which almost never happens. So everyone has keys to your building. Like that's the checklist again. There's also the paychecks and the other things. But then there's the other stuff. Like I love what you said. It's kind of a cycle of self-improvement where you evaluate, why is this person leaving? In the best scenario, it's like, wow, they're starting a family and want to dedicate something to this, and they're becoming a parent or something like that. Or there's, they've changed their interest completely. They still love you, but they're going to do something else, maybe still a member of your gym. Then there's the other side of it where it's like the war on the way out. Those aren't awesome. They happen from time to time, but the cycle of improvement in each case is that if you go through this checklist, you can then make the process better so that you can prevent bad stuff the next time and retain people longer. Have you found that what's the biggest thing that you've learned from exit interviews? Is there something that really stands out where you're like, whoa, if I had never interviewed this person, I wouldn't have been able to improve this process?
I think the biggest thing was showing them a career path, right? And making sure that they knew that they didn't have to take another job to get job security and stability. They didn't have to take another job to make more money. They could pursue their passion. And the other biggest part of that is, making sure we updated that checklist too.
Wow. Did you have people in the early days when you did these exit interviews just say like, I just can't see a future here? Like, was that something that came up?
Yeah, it was. And it was more so because for whatever reason, we hire a lot of females. We have a fairly female heavy employee, and they couldn't just not see a future for them, but for their family down the road. So it was showing them, okay, what does it look like when you do have kids? What does it look like when you want to come back, but only part-time? And really kind of exploring all of those. And that goes back to getting to know your staff.
And so many gyms have had this happen, and so many good people have left fitness because they just couldn't see it. And Chris, Chris has talked about this so many times now. So many great people are just not in the fitness industry, even though they were great coaches getting great results for clients, but they got capped at whatever the rate was, or whatever the classes or the hours or whatever it was, and they're gone. And that's just a tragedy because they're no longer helping people get fit. So that's the model. Is there anything else that we need to highlight from there before we go on and talk a little bit further about some other stuff?
No, I think that sums it up really well.
Okay. So that is, and again, I just showed you the main PDF that shows you the stages that we go through. Everything in there has tons of resources. We've got downloadable PDFs, templates. We've got modules where Chris and Joleen are talking about things. We have all sorts of resources that help touring gym owners put this stuff in place piece by piece. But that will, at least if you're not a client yet, that'll give you an idea of what we're doing with that stuff and how you can get started. So talk to me about like, what has happened at your business? And you touched on this on the intro, but what's happened since you put this in place and have dialed it in cyclically so it's now excellent? How has your business changed?
Number one, and probably the most important is that, and I don't want to jinx it by saying this, but I'm actually sitting at a wood desk, so we'll do that. Turnover has significantly decreased, right? And that is huge when you're trying to build a business because you don't have to start over every single time. We can give them an actual career, right? Most of our staff, the majority of our staff is full-time. So we can provide them benefits. We can give them a career. We can give them that stability that we couldn't do before. Now, keep in mind, we're always going to have people who it is a stepping stone. They're younger. They want to move up to roles that we can't provide in our business, right? But we have been able to keep them much longer, which also translates into client retention because the trainers aren't leaving as often.
And that is such a huge one, right? Because you obviously want your clients to build relationships with you as the owner and the brand, but they have relationships with their coaches. And if you have great coaches who stay long-term, they're going to stay longer. And I talked to Carl Solberg out at CrossFit Metis. He was saying that, and this is really cool, and this is the partner show to this episode with Joleen. He was saying that clients who stay longer spend more. So your business, like the clients get better results. They see more value. They know about more of your services. They want to move faster. They love you. They spend more. So it's good for, the client, obviously, because they get faster results. Good for the coach because the coach gets paid more. And it's excellent for the business because you're paying the coach a percentage of new revenue. So you get to keep some as the owner, right? So this whole thing is like, he called it the triple win, I think, or something like that. It's a really cool thing. So staff retention has huge benefits for the entire business. How cool does it feel to be able to pay someone, $100,000 with benefits? That must be incredible. I never got those.
It's fantastic. It's scary, right? Like whenever you hit these new levels, it's scary because your responsibility for you're responsible for somebody's career and livelihood, but
it's
it also
real now.
puts that, it's real, but it's also that, you know what, I can do this. It gets that imposter syndrome's always there, right? But it is a good feeling. And knowing that you've created something that you can replicate to do with even more people down the road.
Yeah. And it's cool. I've talked to some upper level gym owners on the show often when we do the leaderboard shows and talk to them. And one of the things that I found really cool is when we talk often about like revenue and profit and some of the people in our top 10, they'll come on here and say, oh, you know, what's really cool is I've been able to pay 3 staff members full-time 70 grand a year and they have careers now. And they're proud of that because like you, they're actually building something that's really important. And that's like my family is supported through this business and this career that I love. And it's just incredible. And I'm going to ask you this. Chris has blogged about this a bunch of times, that actual thing at a career roadmap meeting where you take like, this is how many group classes, this is some programming roles, this is some management roles, this is a specialty program, this is the wage, this is the future, this is how we can build this. Have you used that tool with your staff members to show them what they can do financially? Okay. So how important is that? The numbers make it real. How important is that?
Oh, it's huge, right? Especially if they're visual, they have to see the numbers because like you said, you know, you can teach them entrepreneurialism, but until they actually see it and what is possible with it, they're not going to believe you. Like, who's going to believe you when you say that stuff to them? Oh, well, I can get you to 70,000 a year.
Yeah, show me the numbers, show me the money, right?
Yeah,
Jerry Maguire.
How do I do that? Right. But if you sit down and show like, okay, you're only coaching 15 classes a week because that's a lot, 20 classes a week, whatever it is. Here's how you're going to make up the other money. Maybe it is one-on-one clients. Maybe it's specialty programs. Maybe it's management roles. Maybe it's head coaching. And putting those numbers and saying, this is what we're going to pay you every single week or every other week or every month, however you pay, it doesn't matter. But this is what it is. And they look at it like, oh, this is like a real job. This is what I get a paycheck on. I think that matters a lot.
Yeah. And what I really, really like about that template is that not just the classes, because the classes, there's a cap to classes, $20, $25, whatever it is. You can only coach so many, like you said, before it becomes crappy. The cool part is when you start showing people how to build specialty programs and high value services like PT, semi-private training, things like that, where all of a sudden they see like, I'm not making $25 an hour, I'm making 142. And this is why. And then all of a sudden that 142, that's where the career comes in. And then the gym is making a percentage on that. And the whole thing grows like exponentially. And that's where you see gym owners go from, you know, the early stages into the growth stage of our mentorship. And then all of a sudden they're at this tinker level, which is this upper level. I'm making 100K from my business. My business is stable and strong. That's where you see it happen because they get these staff people in place who are making these high value things. And they start working with you in the Tinker program, right? Have you seen that ascension happen really quickly when someone dials in career roadmaps?
Oh yeah, because their staff takes on more leadership responsibility because they can actually see it.
And they start growing the revenue and everyone starts making more and the clients get better results. It's this crazy snowball. And again, if you're interested, if you're in this Tinker program, check it out. I'll put a link in the show notes to our website to the Tinker stuff so that you guys can look at it because Joleen has an amazing program going there for our top gym owners. And it helps you go from, I've got a great gym and now I'm becoming an amazing CEO and you could do whatever you want with your time. Start another business, double down in your current business, do something completely different, or just go to the beach. But there's a lot of cool things going on there. So I'll make sure the Tinker program is in there for you if you want to look at it. Now I'm going to ask you this as we close it up. Yeah. So we showed a sneak peek into what our clients get, and a mentor guides our clients through this and says, do this right now, do this right now. Here's the plan, blah, blah, blah. It works like a charm. Gym owners out there, not a tutoring client just yet. How can they start working towards something like this? Let's give them some baby steps right here so they can take some action today to make their business better with staffing.
Sure. Okay. So that image that we showed you earlier of the template of the roadmap.
Pull it back up here. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Use those stages. List out all those stages, right? Those are the main stages in the ascension, but you can't do it all at once, right? So list each stage out. Give a summary. What do you want? What are your goals at each stage? Can be one sentence, can be long. Write the SOPs and tools that you need, right? Don't do them all as you're writing them. Just list them out, right? The SOPs and tools. Once you're done with that, then start working through them piece by piece and finish recruitment. Then move on to onboarding, right? So having a mentor is hugely important in this because they can keep you from making mistakes. But if you're going to start small and then add to it as you go.
Give me an example, if you don't mind. What would be, say, a summary for recruitment and hiring? Just what's something that you would put in there or you've seen a client put in there?
Right. So recruitment and hiring is the process where you find staff, you interview them, and you offer them the job.
Okay.
So real quick summary of it.
So that's perfect. So that's easy. You guys can take that right from what Joleen just said and type it in. If you screenshot this and turn it into your own PDF, SOPs and tools, give me a couple of ideas. They might be obvious to you, but for listeners, what kind of stuff are they going to need there?
Yeah. So our order of where we look for clients, right? So how we're going to announce the job, our hiring checklist. So we actually have a checklist that we go through, and we actually have written out what an offer looks like to them for each position.
There you go. There's 3 things right there. And then touch points recognition. What's something that someone might put in there?
So the interviews. So for us, it would be, again, that initial reach out, right? When they've responded to a job posting, a phone interview, an in-person interview, shadowing, all of the different pieces that we use in the interview process. And then the last one would be that offer meeting or phone call that we would have with them.
Nice. So listeners, again, and if you're listening, this is on YouTube, you can check it out, but we've just given you 20% of the work has just been done for you by Joleen. So you could just copy literally what she said and fill that in, or tweak it for your special business. That totally works too. And then if you go through the next 4 sections here, onboarding, development, growth, retention, and exit, you can fill in a summary, SOP tools, touch points, and recognition points. And all of a sudden you've got your own staff ascension template that is going to put you on the path to putting people on the path to careers. Now, what happens after that? Because now you've made your list, you got to start filling things in. So is it just like, I'm going to just start hitting these things by number and this is the SOP that I need? Is that what you would do next?
So next like I said, I would finish up the one. So you've got the hiring, right? Yep. Write the SOPs out for it. Don't just put it down that you're going to do it. Actually take action on it. I think that's where a lot of us get stuck, is where we say, oh, here we go. Here's what we're going to do. And then we get stuck not doing it because, running a business is hard and life happens.
Yeah. So taking action, a mentor can absolutely help you do that. To say, hey, did you do that thing that we set out that we both agreed on would be great for the business? No? Okay, you should do that today, maybe this hour, maybe right now. So you're taking action, put the stuff in place, and then all of a sudden you have an entire staffing model and away you go. Have you ever led one of your mentees through this and to create this model?
Yes.
What happened?
We do. Well, they had staff who stayed longer, but they actually could hire staff. They not just hire staff, but they were able to better train their staff to implement what they wanted in the gym, and it reduced their frustration significantly. I think that's probably the number one thing, is that frustration was very, very high when they started it because of that feeling of like, nobody gets it. Nobody's doing what I want them to do. And then they implemented this. And it's not easy to implement with current staff, right? Like it's not something you just plug and play. You actually have to put this model into place with staff meetings and staff conversations and having different things with it. And that's where your mentor guides you along the way with that. But it really reduces the frustration. If
you've got an 8-year warhorse who always coaches the 3 p.m. class, that person may not buy into this program immediately. That's okay. You can start this with new people, bring them in according to this plan. And then as this model becomes a living thing, right? Where every time you learn something, you make adjustments. And then after a few times, you've got a beautiful thing and you're just making small tweaks. But this thing is the basis of long-term career-driven staff development. And again, if you do this the first time, you're going to have less frustration. You'll hire faster. You'll train faster, onboard faster, show people the path to career. The business will grow and it spirals. And all of a sudden you're working in our Tinker program with Joleen. So do take the time to lay this thing out. A lot of the work's been done for you already. Fill it in and start using it. Joleen, thank you so much for sharing this with us and helping gym owners today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me here.
That was Joleen Bingham. Again, if you want to work with her at the Tinker level, check out the link in the show notes. I'm Mike Warkentin. This is Run a Profitable Gym. Really appreciate you watching, listening. If you don't mind giving us a like or a comment on the way out, we'd really appreciate it. Please subscribe for more shows just like this.